Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswati Vyasa. I had to find the verse. I told I am the dear yet. Nastapayesu Bhadrechu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 20, Text 21. Rajovacha Sabya Shrinuta Bhadram Vak Sadhavo Yat Ihagata Satsu Jignasyu Vir Dhamma Avejam Swa Manishnam Subhyaha Shrinuta Bhadravaka Sadhavo Yat Ihagata Satsu Jignasyu Vir Dhamma Avejam Swa Manisitam Subhyaha Shrinuta Bhadram Vat Sadhavo Ya Iha Gataha Satsu Jignatsu Bir Dhamma Avejam Swa Manisitam. You can try. Addressing the ladies and gentlemen. Shrinuta, kindly hear. Bhadram, good fortune. Baha, your. Sarva, all great souls. Ye, who? Iha, here. Agata, present. Satsu, unto the noble men. Jignasubi, one who is inquisitive. Dhamman, religious principles. Avejam, must be presented. Swamanasatam, concluded by someone. Translation. King Prithu said, O gentle members of the assembly, may all good fortune be upon you. May all of you great souls who have come to attend this meeting kindly hear my prayer attentively. A person who is actually inquisitive must present his discussion before an assembly of noble souls. Purport of Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, the word Sarva, all great souls, is very significant. When a person is very great and famous, many unscrupulous persons become his enemies. For envy is the nature of the materialist. In any meeting, there are different classes of men, and it is supposed, therefore, that because Prithu Maharaj was very great, he must have had several enemies present in the assembly. Although they could not express themselves, Maharaj Prithu was concerned with persons who were gentle, and therefore he addressed all the honest persons, not caring for the envious. He did not, however, present himself as a royal authority, empowered to command everyone, for he wanted to present his statement in humble submission before the assembly of great sages and saintly persons. As a great king of the entire world, he could have given them orders, but he was so humble, meek, and honest that he presented his statement for approval in order to clarify his mature decisions. Everyone within this material world is conditioned by the modes of material nature and therefore has 4 defects. But although Prithu Maharaj was above all of these, still like an ordinary conditioned soul, he presented his statements to the great souls, the sages and saintly persons present there. Someone changed me up on a verse this morning. Anyway, we take everything as Krishna's arrangement. So we see that Prithu Maharaj, we had a verse about chanting the holy name and some other issues. But anyway, whatever's there, we accept that as Krishna's arrangement. So Prithu Maharaj, you see, was such a perfect example of an authority. He says the Manu Samhita explains that the leader should know his or her dependents as well as a mother knows their children, and should take care of them to the same extent. In the story of Prithu Maharaj, it mentions how he and rulers of himself, that their first priority, of course, was to the Lord. And it says that they minimized their own needs and desires for the needs of the people of the praja. And it says that they were trained in how to be stewards, how to care. Manu Samhita explains that a ruler who does not protect his constituents is a dead ruler. Meaning that a major aspect of rulership is to offer protection. And what is the greatest threat, greatest danger? Padam padam yadvi padam natesham. We see this material world, it's full of danger. And that danger is mainly accepting the body as the all in all, accepting material existence as the all in all, and considering that life is nothing more than eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Bhakti Vinod Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti explains there's only 3 things that the jiva needs, the conditioned soul. Shravana, to remember, to hear, mana, to reflect, and smarana, to remember. That means to be eager for connecting with the transcendental sound, understanding and activities, to engage in intense bhajan, One is dedicating his or her full self to the nectar of devotion, the culture of devotion. And one is to constantly be in contemplation about how they're doing and to refine themselves. And then one is to constantly be in remembrance about what is said, what is given, how to do everything proper, and especially what has come before us as the Acharyas, Acharyavan Purusho Veda. This is why when we ask you the 3 things to keep in mind during this festival and to take home with you, to keep the idea that being in spiritual life is like a battlefield, so be prepared, be equipped, and form good sadhu alliances. To take this inventory, the manaha, to constantly be in reflection, allowing the mind to work for you rather than to be a slave of the mind and the senses. Vacho Vega Manasa Krodha Vega, Jiva Vega Udara Pasta Vega. These Vegas, these pushes, are so prominent, but not impossible to overcome. It's like every sense is pulling, demanding attention and satiation. And unless we're constantly remembering, we have to remember why we took to this process, why we took initiation, why we've taken to a certain nirvana, a certain ashram. We have to remember so many things that have been passed down through the great scriptures. So we're excited about antiquity, but at the same time we're excited about modernity. Bhakti Vinod explains about Arunika, where we are to look at what is there in the present situations, in the present field of activities, Arunika Vada, and we are to analyze things, but we're always to see what will help to bring the spiritual message through. So in that sense, antiquity or modernity are to be used, and not that we're to be stuck in them. Any more than we're to be stuck in the mode of ignorance, the mode of passion, or even the mode of goodness. But we're to use the mode of goodness as a platform for accelerating into transcendence. And the mode of goodness is Dharma. And so that is being righteous and truthful and compassionate and kind and selfless. If one does not imbibe these qualities intensely, Prabhupada says in Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th Canto, that no one can become a pure devotee while being captured by the mode of ignorance and the mode of passion. And without coming to the mode of goodness, no one can become a pure devotee. And so many other discussions, emphasis is given to us about the importance of this platform, because this makes it more organic or more natural for one to access a life of divinity. And all of this has to do with the sambandha, or how every entity relates to another. The way we relate is so much connected on concatenation with our consciousness. And from our consciousness, from our thoughts, of course, comes our words and comes our actions. And so we are to engage, it says, those who are doing deity service and then puja, explains about the importance of manasi seva. Is that no deity service, and since we're always serving the deities, no service is proper without also deep reflection, meditation, deep contemplation. Otherwise we are doing it mechanically and we will not get the sufficient realizations and benefit. So there must be the external activity that's going on, but more important is the internal counterpart. Everything we do externally that we're doing in the process of devotion is really to cultivate the internal. Because the dehi, the body, all this external is coming and is going. Never was a time we know when we did not exist. That is, we as our original Swarup, the soul. But we see that the body is constantly in transition. And so as we just focus on the physicality and the external, then of course we're addressing the temporary. Yes, we have to maintain our economic concerns, our social concerns, our educational, our political, etc. We have to pay our insurance. We have to pay our mortgages. We have to arrange for our children. We have to arrange to eat. We have to arrange for housing. We have to have jobs. But we should see ourselves as having those things and not being it. When we're at a point that we are being such and we become overwhelmed by such, and our main concentration is just dealing with these things only, then we've missed what human life is really about. So we want to encourage you as we are trying somehow to work on ourselves, because the best way to help someone else is first to improve you on yourself. And so one of these short prayers I want to read is from the new book that'll be coming out soon, Die Before Dying. Our concern is that we're all moments away from death, how long we may live. That life, as this Prabhupada says, is to be able to die gloriously like Grandfather Bhishma. So life really is preparation for death. In other words, we have to die to live. We have to die from so many bad habits. We have to die from so many unhealthy attachments to be able to have real life. As we have real life, it doesn't matter whether we're in the physical body or out of the physical body, or how long we have in the physical body, because we're accessing our eternality. If you think about it, a major aspect of the religious journey is giving death to orthodoxy. That mainly in the material world, people are engaged in trying to have all of the opulences of the Lord. They want yasha, they want fame, they want virya, they want the greatest strength, they want aishvarya, all the opulences. They want sri, they want beauty. In other words, we see that there's this constant competition, that all the major qualities that are possessed fully by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that the nature of the material world is people are trying to usurp or trying to take those for themselves without recognizing who is the real controller and owner. If somebody comes into your house and they take something that is yours and they claim it is theirs, they're considered to be a thief. So much of what goes on in the material world with those who are impious, people are taking and claiming and using and abusing things and not recognizing who has given it to them, not recognizing who it should go back to, and considering that it is theirs. And even while having it as theirs, they still do not even take proper care of it. When you have great respect and appreciation for someone, if they loan or give you something, you take better care of it than even if it was distinctly yours. Because the beloved or the person who is given to you means so much, so you come up even beyond your normal caretaking and you try to do your best to see that what they have given or what they've shared with you is something that you can be able to honor as you honor their existence. So we call each other Prabhu, which means we're saying to each other, you are my master, I'm your servant. And therefore it means that we are to act in such a way and to associate in such a way that we treat others, not only you love your neighbors yourself, but the idea that you should love your neighbor even more than yourself, seeing that you are connected in yourself in connection with that person. That a greater aspect of you is how you develop your internal and how you relating to others and seeing the Lord, seeing God, seeing Krishna in everyone. Therefore, without such transcendental anti-material compassion, there's no question of entities being able to transcend these material prisons. All the material universes are reformatories. They're all designed to help us to become reformed. It is not that we have any of this kind of duality in the kingdom of God. We have so many desires that are sanatana, that are eternal, that are not able to be accessed and manifested in our realm of duality at our particular time in these bodies. But they are there because there is an inner knowing that we all have, an inner belonging. Every entity in existence is so much bigger than who he or she thinks that they are. And each of us in our original nature, because the soul is not just some smoke ether, the soul is the real entity. And that has full personality and full expressions of genuine pure senses. Return back to the kingdom of God, then we have chance to be able to be in fullness. My family, we're all Christian background, so we see in the Bible it emphasizes in Corinthians that there is terrestrial, that is, there is the physical, and there is the celestial. 2 Corinthians says, while one is in the terrestrial, he is away from God. While we're in the physical, we are away from our original nature. And so what goes back? Is it flesh and blood that goes back to the kingdom of the Lord? No. Then what goes back? That is spirit soul. So I want to share a short but rather intimate reflection. And then we'll have a little presentation by the children. And then later you'll have a workshop, and we go on with entertainment and expressions. As I mentioned, I wrote this book for several reasons. I wrote it for our own self-purification and reflection, as to try to better myself to serve you better myself to be more accountable to my mentors, to my spiritual master, to try to look closer at the issues of the world in general, the issues that are being confronted by spiritualists who are often struggling and sometimes procrastinating. And so my concern has been, especially this last few years, of how to be a global change agent, and to look close at whatever is needed. And I've asked you to pray, and last year in Mayapur, almost during this time, I offered an appeal to the international community that we make this prayer in summary, that whatever that one needs to become pure, to become fixed, to become selfless, to be able to go back to the kingdom of God, that whatever is needed, that we individually need to encounter, to let that come to us. And to pray that whatever needs to be taken away, whatever it may be, to let that be taken away. Hundreds of devotees agreed to make that prayer for the whole year. Unfortunately, I'm not able to go to Mayapur next week to see how many were consistent and followed through. They may have found themselves in the same situation I'm in. They may have changed that prayer later. When I first came down with some of the illness, and a couple of my senior godbrothers called, and they said, Maharaj, you prayed to Prabhupada that you're 55 years old now, and you want to take on certain extra burden that will relieve others from their burden. And now you've got sugar diabetes and high blood pressure and cancer and some of the other things. We think you better take back that prayer. I told him, no. This is my understanding, my desire, and my joy. I said yesterday how Bhakti Vinod said how any suffering, Bhakti Vinod said, any suffering that I undergo in behalf of serving the Lord, that is my greatest joy. So what may appear to be suffering in one way, which is suffering, so to some extent, takes on a whole nother light. I mean, some of you have had that experience, isn't it? When you literally had to suffer or you struggled, but it's someone who you really loved. And even though it was inconvenient, even though it was maybe seeming like an imposition, it was to your happiness to see that what you did or what you arranged or what you sacrificed was able to facilitate some others. So how Krishna and Prabhupada arranges the finalization of your existence or my existence, that is all decided before we even took birth. As we come into this world, birth is there how we take birth, and also how each person leaves. If the Lord is controlling everything, then it means that there's nothing that is going outside of His control. And so we don't just take birth, nor do we die just by accident. Or is there any real thing as accident? It just means something out of our immediate realm of control and understanding. So, in my own case, whether I'm with you for weeks, for months, or for years, or outlive all of you, that is all up to the Lord, and it doesn't matter. Because if we live every day, if we die to live, of giving up unhealthy habits, and if we're accessing who we are in our original nature, then the things that we do, then we're in the world but not of the world, or we find constant ways of how to dovetail things that we have to deal with in our day-to-day lives in such a way that it doesn't distract us from our real identity and from our spiritual commitments. And whatever distracts, that is our maya, that is our sin. And what facilitates that, of course, that is to our credit. So this meditation is a little different. And I put 2 or 3 in here because I wasn't sure which ones to read. But somehow when you were chanting, and I was dealing with the pepper in my eyes, I thought I would read this one. A little more intimate. One should not reveal their bhajan in full. But in one correspondence I sent, in Priti, in the exchanges of love, and these 6 exchanges, say chaya, dosha, chaya, in these exchanges, what we find is that you share or you reveal your mind in confidence to those who are close to you. So what if you're trying to see everyone close to you? Then it means you should be revealing your mind a lot, right? And your heart. So I don't want a small circle of close people. I'm too greedy, too selfish, and too spoiled for that. Matter of fact, I don't even like to go places where people don't love each other. If you want to see me move quick out of environment, of course now I move a little slow, but have an atmosphere that's avoiding love, and I'll find a way to be quite absent. But where there is the love and devotion, it is so attracting because we are all starving for love. We've just completed the 2nd edition of The Spiritual Warrior 2, and we added a new chapter. And in that, we're addressing that life is a school of love, preparing us for eternal Ashraya Tattva, divine love in the spiritual world. Because I'll forget later, some of you will be going back today and tomorrow. See Murari Gupta. Murari, are you here? Okay, if you see Dr. Gupta there, a retired internist, he is going to arrange for boxes of books, of the new books that just came out. We have a commentary on the Sri Upanishad, and we have Transforming Love into Lust, 2nd edition, with so much more information and consideration, especially in the chapter between love between a man and a woman. As we see that there's greater need, I think, for more facilitation in this area. So there are boxes. Please, those who will be going early, see him and take some back to your countries. It'll save us some of the, it'll save you and save us some of the fee for shipments. The devotees work very hard to have them ready for the festival. So take advantage of them while you're here. But my point of bringing that up, also I need beads now. By later this morning, or if you can, Anasuya, after the children have finished, if you can send as many of the japa beads for those who've taken first initiation over to the house, so that I can start doing the japa meditation and prayers for those who'll be taking the initiations. Now, what I've written here, as I've done throughout the Beggar series, the Beggar book, this will be Beggar 4. I've purposely tried to be as revealing as possible, I've tried to address issues that I feel are sensitive. I've tried to be very secretive in this sense, even though I'm being very revealing. I've tried to definitely write things that if somebody reads the book seriously, it will definitely help them to move through anartha nivritti. In other words, of all the books that I've written, and the others are more sophisticated, the Beggars are the books that I go, and when I'm here and other places, I go into the woods, I walk, I pray, I cry, I scream, I yell, and I write. So almost every single beggar I've written has been in an altered state. And so these are they're very short reflections, but we ask you to take them very seriously because we feel that they are writings beyond ourselves. I don't feel I have the capacity to do any of the writings that's going on, material or spiritual. The spiritual and material and spiritual way, we have so many helpers, so many of you are helping in so many ways, and there's so much divine intervention. Practically none of my books that I plan to write, that I go into them with the idea that I am writing a book on this particular topic. Maybe only Spiritual Warrior 6 is coming out that due to the terrorism and such, that was kind of a meditation, distinct the area I wanted to write on. In most cases, they were tapes that later we gathered. It was some writings that we started that didn't turn into something else. They were notes, diary notes. Like the first beggar was diary notes. I went to Africa, came back one day once for Vyasa Puja, and Yasoda showed me this book in my lap. And I was thinking, how did she get my diary notes and meditations? And she had printed, and that was beggar 1. Which is good, because then it was written without pretense, as my prayers to my guru, as my life, spiritual life has been so much in separation in the early days, and of course now. And so I would, of course, do this diary writing to Prabhupada every day, especially when I was in the communist countries. I would write to him as a report and as a prayer, as a way to try to connect, more on an internal basis. So this one is a part of this new compendium of prayers, and it's revealing about what my present outcome may be and our relationship with most of you. I am being called back by 2 different agencies. I am being called, by 2, oh my God, was that a slip or? I am being called by 2 different agencies. In late October of 1977, Srila Prabhupada said, "Do things very carefully. I am already dead. But still, I'm giving you instructions as far as I can." This is Srila Prabhupada speaking to us in these earlier years. Prabhupada would often tell us, as he was so elderly, "Dad, I'm an old man, I can die any day. But you're young, carry out the mission." Through this statement, he was reminding us that he would soon be leaving. But he was also sending a reminder that we are all around the corner from death and must therefore do the necessary while we can. How wonderful it is to have so many friends and associates who care for me so dearly and who are so eager for me to be with them, even though I am most unworthy of their association. They are most kind and tolerant, constantly extending their mercy to me in so many different ways. This imposes a problem, because my associates who know me in this lifetime have their reasons for why they would like me to continue existing here. But my friends and associates who know me more intimately and eternally also have their reasons for why I should close this chapter of my present existence and join them in their services. Both groups are convincing. But who am I to decide which decision should be honored? And who am I to decide which will be more pleasing to my spiritual master? Therefore, I submit myself to my Guru Dev asking Him to guide me accordingly to what He feels is necessary and best in His service to humanity. No, but don't anybody throw any pepper in my eyes anymore now. My relatives, friends, and associates here are concerned that I needed to continue my relationship with them because we share something unique and something important together. But my relatives, friends, and associates in the higher realms are even more convinced that it is now necessary for me to join them because we share something even more unique and important together. See, we all have associates, friends, and relatives in this life, but we've lived other lifetimes. And as we said, some lifetimes we've been in a man's body, a woman's body. Some lifetimes we've been in a pauper, some lifetimes in a queen or a king's body. Every relationships we have are important and a chance for incarceration or for liberation. Any relationships can add to our remaining prisoner or can help us in our pursuits of liberation, of reclaiming our spirituality. And so sometimes in our previous lives, our relationships have checked our spiritual growth. Sometimes they've enhanced our spiritual growth. Some of our present relationships, they've helped us, and some of them have taken away. We have to all look individually to see in our associations how much are we giving knowledge of who we are in terms of trying to live as servants of the Lord, and how much are others around us assisting with that? How much are we trying to be the servant of the servant? Daso mi daso dasano das. By trying to serve by raising consciousness in any environments that we associate in. So sometimes one is blessed with being a Shrutidar, very unlucky in these days, where a person has a perfect recollection and memory. Real Brahmacharis would have that. Or one sometimes is aware of their previous lives. We all are to some extent. We have some intuition, some intuitive, sometimes reflections and dreams. Some people we meet, some places that we go. And many times, according to our bhajan, we become more aware of our previous existence. Somehow the Lord has blessed me that, or cursed me, that in some ways I've been a little aware of the future. And so that's why sometimes I'm very arrogant and bold, because at times when I have some understanding of what certain outcomes are going to be, even though I'm so insecure and so incompetent, there's a contradiction that many times and most times I'm very bold, because I have somehow some little faith and some little appreciation of what often can be probable. So here we're looking at a situation of seemingly conflict. And this is why we were asking you, don't pray in your prayers that I stay. Just pray that whatever will be pleasing to the Lord, whatever can allow us to give Him the best service, let that happen. Because sometimes we can help more, outside of the body more than we can in the body. And nobody stays long. And many great teachers and prophets left very early. Jesus left at 33 years old. Some of you were twice that age almost. Lord Chaitanya left at what, 43? Sankaracharya left at what, 30, 32? Very young. We see often civil rights workers, we see social reformists leave very early. Martin Luther King left, I think, at 39. Is that one doesn't have to stay long. It's not that longevity is a sign of the beauty of life, but it's the quality of life that's most important. Most relative friends and associates here are concerned that I need to continue in my relationship with them because we share something unique and important. But my friends, relatives, and associates in higher realms, even more convinced that it is now necessary for me to join them because we share something even more unique and important together. Some of them are visiting here today. Therefore, I submit, not that they are seen. Anytime there's an important gathering, if the devotion is significant, then there are those who are physically manifested and those who are also come. When we say all glories to the assembly of devotees, we're actually saying all glories to the devotees who we see presently, physically, and any who, devas or demigods or apsaras or vijaharas or gandharvas, angels, archangels, who may have come, or nityasiddhas who may have come for associations. We are never alone. None of us are ever alone. We have so many shikshas that are designed and are joyfully assisting us, every single one of us. When you make your vrats, your vows, and you connect, you're connecting with an agencies of help and facilitation. And therefore, we don't want to disappoint, but we want to facilitate and serve. Therefore, I submit myself to my Guru Dev, asking him to guide me according to what he feels is necessary and best in the service to humanity. My relatives, friends, and associates here feel that since I have so many family members, and today so many of them are here, some are still at the house, and disciples, some of you here from so many places in the world, are connected to me and who some depend on me, it would be unhealthy to separate myself from them at this time. Like some of you, we're even meeting for the first time. There's 2 or 3 disciples who are going to take initiation. We've been in touch by letter and conversation, but meeting physically for the first time. Their connection is that family, I'm the baby in the family. It is unnatural for the youngest amongst the children to be the first to leave the body. In natural culture, you expect elders to leave first, and etc. I'm the youngest in my family, and we see, perhaps I may be the first to leave of the brothers and sisters. As far as my disciples all around the world, they feel that they are still too much like babies and very much still need the physical presence of the spiritual master. We got something very special from Prabhupada's Vapu, from his physical presence. And at the same time, if Prabhupada stayed with us, that in so many ways, even though there's always confusion when the Acharya leaves, the Prophet leaves, when the Guru leaves, but at the same time, it gives an opportunity for greater maturity. So many of the devotees, since Prabhupada have left, have become so much more deep in Vaishnava culture. So many devotees who would have never tried to look closer at the legacy that's been given to us and the message by many, many of our previous acharyas. They would not have gone there. So many who have learned Bengali, have learned Sanskrit, etc., to read the books in their original language, would not have done that as long as Prabhupada was present and making everything available and feeding us in such ways. So in some ways, by Prabhupada leaving, he forced us to swim or to sink. When the teacher is in the room, the teacher is giving the assignment, but we don't really see the quality of the student until the teacher leaves the room, and then we see who has taken the lesson seriously, who is ready to go on and not be insubordinate because the teacher is gone. Even some who act with integrity, as soon as the teacher leaves, then they goof off or they create problems. Or they lose sight of what the assignments were. But the serious student, when the teacher leaves, is now even more attentive. Knowing that the teacher is gone, let me be careful that I do what is necessary, and so when the teacher comes back, I have engaged in the assignment, or the teacher is gone, let me reflect on what the teacher has said so that it lives on with me, and so I do it right. When the teacher is there, the teacher can give the direct discipline and guidance. But that is not the duty of the teacher. The teacher's duty is to train up and make other teachers. Or the teacher's duty is to share and to give the knowledge with the hope that the student will take it and use it even more and better than the teacher. So no teacher wants just to have students who are only blind followers or dependent to the point that they are not able to take the lesson and be spontaneous and use their intellect and to how to be innovative, etc. The teacher's a failure. How strong that teacher may seem to be, if that teacher has not made leaders. The sign of a leader is that that leader has made leaders. The sign of a good leader is that one has made people even better than him or herself. Prithu Maharaj was very humble and very powerful. And he was the sign of a good leader, a servant leader, who solved the welfare of the people as his major priority, as more important than his own desires and needs. His own desires and needs were secondary to that of the needs of his people. And therefore we have begged upon you to look at your lives to see how you are doing things to help to remove or to minimize the suffering of others. And then Krishna will, Supreme Lord, will assist you with your own individual struggles. My relatives, friends, and associates here say that I have so many of my spiritual master's books to distribute. You know, Prabhupada has written so many books in so many different languages. And these are our core, our reference, our root books. There are many of us who are writing, and our writings are supplementary, or complementary. But when you have these Nitya siddhas who come right in, who've never been conditioned, who were sent right in from the spiritual kingdom, they come with a very, very special, empowered message that goes far beyond just the immediate time and the place. It is a duty of the devotee, just as when you give a class, you read the scripture, you read the verse, you read the purport, but also you give your purport. It is a duty to relish the material and to share it and to keep bringing nourishment and fulfillment to that. I have so many of my spiritual masters' books to distribute and so many more of my own books to finish writing and publishing. My spiritual master honored me as one of his biggest book distributors. As a brahmachari, I was very active in distributing the books like this. I have different series of books of my own with different volumes that we want to complete. Some of the editorial staff are here from a few of the different countries. And they see that we're pushing them to finish translating and get the books out. They feel I cannot depart so soon, for I will leave these series incomplete and still have thousands of people to introduce to my spiritual master's books. Therefore, I submit myself to my Guru Dev, asking him to guide me according to what he feels is necessary and best in his service to humanity. My relatives, friends, and associates here say that I must surely continue offering my seminars and workshops, since they're often beneficial and help many devotees and non-devotees in transforming themselves into better people and developing much greater sensitivity and compassion. And there is the radio shows and the television shows which are tactfully introducing millions of people to transcendental knowledge. However, therefore, I submit myself to my Guru Dev, my spiritual teacher, asking him to guide me according to what he feels is necessary and best in the service to humanity. My relatives, friends, and associates, here they say we have so many temples to maintain, farm communities to develop, and other preaching projects to expand. There are so many Mayavadis, sinful people, to expose who are bewildered, who need to be saved. Most people in society today are controlled by propaganda, fads, lust, and greed. Most people live only for improving their lives, for mating and defending. Some who are a little more evolved pursue various religious activities for changing or improving their material condition. However, involvement in dharma, religiosity, art, economic development, karma, sense gratification, moksha, liberation, is inferior, we know, to Sanatana Dharma, or transcendental activities. Therefore, I submit myself to my Guru Dev, asking him to guide me according to what he feels is necessary and best in his service to humanity. And I end with these two last paragraphs here. My relatives, friends, and associates from higher realms are requesting that I come back to join them. As I have many duties awaiting me, such as festivals to help arrange, special prasadam and drinks to prepare, cows to take care of, dances to participate in, and associates who are eager to see me engage, who are eager to see me out of the lower realms. These activities of preaching and checking the deviants are activities which give great mercy to the conditioned souls. But such activities can cause one to feel like a controller, or to feel like that the goal of spiritual life is combating negativity. In fact, the essence of spirituality is not to combat the deviants, convert others, or engage in varieties of preaching endeavors, although these are very important. Not only are they necessary, but they are integral parts of the mission of Ghoshtanandis. Lord Chaitanya has requested that his message be delivered to every town and every village. Gita Nagari Farm. What is it? Yavadeki Tara Kaha Krishna Upadesh. That one should be active in trying to share. And that everyone should take the position of being guru. What is the verse? Everyone should take to become guru. Amara Agna Guru Hana Deva Tara Sai. That everyone should become guru and save the land. Everyone should become teacher. Everyone should not just wait for things to happen or watch things happen, but be involved in making things happen. Lord Chaitanya himself has requested that his message be delivered to every town and every village, which is the mood of our great acharyas. However, more important than these activities is ultimately returning back to our home in the spiritual kingdom, where every moment is as joyful an animated opportunity to serve and to glorify their divine lordships. My relatives, friends, and associates from the higher realms remind me that if I am to remain longer in this material universe on various preaching missions, I must remain constantly aware of what is the actual goal of all spiritual activities. And I must be extremely careful to not minimize the importance of being fully absorbed and surrendering in the mood of a Vrajavasi. I must be careful to not preach about Vrindavan while living more as an agent of Dharma or religiosity. How fortunate I feel that I'm being considered and invited by my relatives, friends, and associates from the material worlds as well as in the higher realms. I am prepared to stay or to leave. Therefore, I submit myself to my Guru, asking him to guide me. According to what he feels is necessary and best in the service of humanity. I am that lowly beggar who is desperate, who is being called to stay as well as to return home. My dear spiritual master, you can keep me here or you can send me home, according to what gives you and humanity the greatest service. Thank you.
His Holiness Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj ki.
I almost got through it without any of this boo-hooing. So we'll take a few questions, and then while we're having a few questions, so getting the children ready for their performance, and then there's prasadam, there's breakfast after that. So in order to get the children ready, we need to have the devotees who are here to somehow to merge in, to move back. Speak a little louder. Okay.
Sometimes while we perform our services, we get entangled with the physical aspect of it or become more material in the process, and we get further from the focus of spirituality. And when that happens, should we slowly retrieve our steps, or should we just jump back to?
She's asking, I don't know if you're able to hear, that sometimes as we perform our services and duties, that we do find ourselves becoming somewhat overwhelmed by the material counterpart of those activities. So the question is, what do we do to create that balance? In some ways, the pursuit of Krishna consciousness, the involvement, is creating balance in our lives. I was reading something the other day from Bhagavatam where Papa was saying how greed and poverty, for instance, can interfere with our devotion. And I was looking a little closer at that. And he was emphasizing that there are times when if we are too much absorbed just in maintenance, or if we're too greedy for wealth, or if we're too deprived of basic necessities, that then so much of our energy will just go in that direction of either just trying to get things because we don't have, or trying to get more and more because we have and we want more and more because of greed. But we see that sometimes Krishna is a Kinchana, sometimes he will take away, and sometimes the same Lord will give. For some people, to have wealth will interfere with their spiritual acceleration. In some cases, to have poverty will interfere with their spiritual acceleration. In some cases, to have fame will enhance their acceleration and will humble them, like in the case of Prithu Maharaj, who although was so prominent and so dominant, was at the same time so subservient and submissive. Or as our Srila Prabhupada, all the great honors he simply saw is that he was just carrying out the orders of his guru and would offer it back to his spiritual mentor. The Lord in the heart, he knows what each of us need to encounter as part of our test. So if we're finding that we have so many material things that are somewhat overwhelming, we should also embrace it joyfully and see how kind the Lord is that he's given us all these encumbrances as a way to keep us somewhat detached. When we have great health, we should think, oh, how wonderful you are, Lord, that you give me this health so I can use it in your service. We have sickness, we think, oh, how wonderful you are that you put me in a debilitated situation where I can be more dependent and where I can be more mindful about using a good health when I do have it. If we have wealth, we think, oh, how wonderful you are, Lord. You've given us wealth that we can use and give back to you. And if we have impoverishment, we think, oh, how wonderful you are, Krishna, that you have taken away, knowing that if I have, I will become too unnecessary or excessively independent, or I will think that I am the Parameshwar, the supreme controller, rather than recognizing you as a controller. If we're in relationship, we thank the Lord, how wonderful you are, that you've given me this wife and children and husband, etc. And if we're out of relationship, we think, oh, how wonderful that you've allowed me to have this simple life. So the idea of rising above the material platform is just that. To the degree that we accept the duality, we imbibe it, and instead of engaging, as Bhakti Vinod says, these two things, Shravanam, Mana and Smarana, we will not be remembering and thinking and reflecting and planning and accepting transcendence, but we'll be so much distracted by the temporary or the secondary. There is the Mukhya and there's the Gona. There are the primary tenets, the primary things, and there's the Gona, there's the secondary. And we have to be able to distinguish which is primary and which is secondary. It is the primary issues that will be able to enhance our devotion. Any secondary things, if it's adding and helping us more with the primary, then we should do more of that. That which is favorable helps us to enhance our spiritual life and commitments with more avid or eagerness. That which is unhealthy brings us more to the culture of lust and degradation. So it is not always the same in each person's life. One has to be honest to look at what is happening in their life based on their field of activities to see if they're having too much involvement in the secondary things that is distracting them from accessing their original Swarup and vrats and commitments. Other questions? Where's the microphone? Rupa Vilas?
I probably get going on recording. Oh, okay.
I'm so happy Apurva, Rupa Vilas, and so many of my godbrothers and godsisters also have come, along with the disciples. When I first came into the society, the first temple I stayed in was in Dallas, Texas. So I had just finished graduating from Princeton. I was working in the Office of the Public Defender, and I quit the job to join the Gurukula school that we had in Dallas, Texas. And Rupa Vilas at that time and a few other devotees were very prominently involved in managing those facilities and taking care of now they're adults, and some of them even have children themselves who are under his care. And I was always impressed about his dedication. I was just Bhakti Jan, and then later Ganasham. I've had so many different names. And he was such an educator and such a wonderful Brahmin. So it's quite an honor to be able to have him. I see he's getting a little gray. He's getting up there now. Thank you very much for coming.
I'm going to have to tell a story about you. When I first met Maharaj, you know how it is when you first meet a person.
As I met Prabhupada, that I couldn't understand where he was coming from at all. It was a complete mystery. Then I was assigned to a Sankirtan party. It was Maharaj, Sridananda Maharaj, Tushikran, and the other two parties, the distribution party. We would go out on Sankirtan, and this was in the deep south and the west. And always the top book distributor was going to try to remember, this is in the early 70s. We were in the realm of redneck. Dangerous places we were actually going. And yet Maharaj always distributed more books than anyone else, and even some of these very ardent persons would actually take books from him, and every day he would come back having distributed the most books and always be in a completely blissful state. On that same trip, I got so sick they had to drop me off in Los Angeles, and Maharaj skyrocketed into Krishna consciousness, and as you all know the rest of his activities. And I just remember that from the very beginning, he was transcendently situated and ecstatic with Krishna consciousness.
I thought you had a question.
That was all he does. So the question is, Maharaj, what is your secret of success?
First, I have to try to become successful, and then when I do, I'll tell you. Again, as we take birth, it all has its special facilitation. You know, I look and I see, you know, how my mother was such a source of inspiration. When I decided to, you know, join the society, when I decided to become vegetarian, my mother is a fabulous cook. And I spoke to her about it. And she says, you should do it. After I graduated from the university, and I had a kind of a nice material arrangement. I had a plan where they were going to send me to China, to Tanzania, and then to the UN. I was being financially, facilitated. I wanted to be a diplomat, and now I'm a spiritual diplomat. So I'm dovetailing, you can see. So I spoke to my mother, and she was always in a prayerful state. And she just said, when you were born, I offered you, to God. And she said, so I'm not surprised that you were, making this kind of decision. So I've had these kind of helpers in my life up to the point of meeting Srila Prabhupada. Just like when we met, there I was, a little brahmachari, just had never stayed in a temple. And then who did I have association with? With Satsu Maharaj and Hridayananda Maharaj. And they were, two of our senior, leaders in the society. And then Satsu Maharaj tolerated me for so many years as his servant, and he took care of me. I was supposed to be taking care of him, but I was doing so many things wrong, but he just tolerated me. And I felt so good later, and recently I was talking with him and telling him how much I love him, and how much, we are in touch now by phone and by letter. He's quite ill, elderly, getting a little older. And I was thinking how kind the Lord was, that it took me several years before I realized that some people didn't follow the principles. Because my involvement had been so kind of sheltered and protected by traveling and being with Satsu Maharaj and Hridayananda Maharaj. And they were so strict and so focused. So I didn't know that people could be hypocrites. And so it's like my initial foundation was so simple and I think so pure in that way. And I believe in many ways when I have wanted to run away, deviate, try to reject, doing my services or doing this kind of activity, I had that kind of support. And the other thing I was sharing with members of my family yesterday, I think, or day before, is some things happen to us obviously beyond our means. And that's mercy. Most of my life I've prayed to be forced to be able to do what will be pleasing, to the Lord. I don't want to depend, because I know how crazy my mind is. And I see how that's happened even before I start making that prayer. See, I was a child evangelist at 8 years old. And some of you know the whole story. I was born with a speech defect. I would stutter so bad you couldn't hear what I was saying if we're having a one-to-one conversation. But as soon as I would go into a pulpit, I would be able to speak. As soon as I come down, I would have trouble. So I had a ministry of preaching at mental institutions, in prisons, in hospitals, on radio at 8 years old. Now, at some point, especially later in high school and especially in college, I tried like anything to give up any connection with anything spiritual. I just tried to pursue illicit activities, experiment, and something would happen. Whenever I would take intoxications, I would find that instead of being social, I would start giving a sermon. Here I would be with an attractive girl. I thought I'm an attractive boy. So I was a ladies' man. And because I was at Princeton and I was a student leader and I was popular and I exploited my popularity. So I would call women down from all over. And then sometimes I would drink or smoke something. Excuse me. But then I would find that I would start preaching to the girl. So I would start telling her why we should not be drinking, why we should not be engaged, why we should not be engaged in adultery. And so I kept trying, but somehow it's like the Lord was forcing me, that when I was small, He was showing me that if you're going to speak, you're going to have to be focused more on religious discourses. And if you're going to socialize or be with people, you're going to have to be spiritual. So it was like there was a certain inter-push when I was and I'm just revealing this because who knows when we'll see each other again. And some of this comes out in the biography. It's a Russian author has written a biography about myself, so you're going to hear some of this anyway. This is later will be translated into English. When I was very small, even as 3 or 4 years old, I remember my body would always tingle. And it was like I was trying to get out of the body. Some of you may have that experience now. And so it was like there was distinct dichotomy of the physical and the soul. And I think it wasn't until a teenager until finally it had stopped. But it was like there was a part of me that didn't want to be here, another part that was here, or another part that was reminding me of the separation of the soul and the body. I think maybe you've had, in the earlier years in America and other places, when you would get your tooth pulled, they would put, I think, Novocaine, and as you go under, the body kind of tingles, and then you go out. So I would have that kind of tingling sensation, and sometimes it happens in some type of meditation where you may experience kind of leaving the body on astral travel. So I would have that constantly as if I was trying to get out of the body. I didn't understand the why. And the other thing is that I was born not in a vegetarian family, but one of my mother's friends had a health issue and she was a vegetarian. And one day we went over to her house. I was very small, maybe only, 9 years old, 7, 8. And she fixed a vegetarian meal for us. And somehow, just by being there and having that meal, it was similar to when I first heard Prabhupada. My first meeting with Prabhupada was through his voice, that I was with my fiancée in her home, and we had put on the George Harrison tape where Prabhupada is explaining about the mantra. And when I heard Prabhupada's voice, his voice just jumped right out of the hi-fi, and it's like it embraced me and chastised me and grabbed me. And I was crying and I was angry and I was sad and I was happy, because I realized that that voice was putting me under arrest. Like it was reminding me that what you are doing isn't what you came to this world for. And I changed that day. I went into the room, I chanted my first, 16 rounds. I chanted and prayed, and I came out and I told my fiancée at that point of what I was intending to do, to join the Hare Krishna movement. And she looked and said, and she said, I knew. She was quite a psychic person, and she said that she was expecting this, and she gave me her blessings. She was a yoga teacher, and we never saw each other again. So in other words, I'm only saying it to say that if we want, our lives will be totally organized for us. And that's why I'm writing this kind of prayer, is that right now there's a decision being made whether I stay or leave. And I'm leaving it up, to the higher agencies. We're all having free will, as that is part of our gift as being individuals. But we can also offer that free will back in various ways. We say, thy will be done. We're really saying, dear Lord, you know better what I need. You can arrange things much better than I can ever do. And so therefore, let me stop trying to drive and let you drive. You just make that prayer more to be forced to do whatever is best to assist in your spiritual acceleration, and you'll find many things begin to shift and to change, and ultimately it will be for the best of our existence. So that, I mean, that's a little long commentary, and I apologize for being so personal and revealing, but in one sense, I can say that any little something achievement is due to the mercy, of course, of my gurus and spiritual mentors that I've had constantly, who've been forcing me internally and externally. One or two last questions, and I think where's the microphone? Who's closest to it? Mm-hmm. And then pass it to my godbrother, Vikeshwar. Please. Try to speak a little louder. Okay, go ahead.
What I wanted to ask you about, you were talking about how sometimes God puts adversities and conflicts into our lives, and sometimes the conflicts and adversities that just almost seemingly destroy our lives. And you say that God does these things as mercy. Could you explain to me a little bit what mercy this is there because of these adversities?
Okay, she's asking the question, and she's an example. She's blind, she has tremendous health issues constantly for years and years. She's been almost like an invalid. So she's asking this question. So can you explain more about mercy? That you say that God arranges such things, and it's to be considered as mercy. Well, look how fortunate one can be. Just like, take this example that I'm having now, that I don't know from day to day what the situation is. But I feel more spiritualized because now it's allowing me to honor the Swarup Lakshana, the major tenet of dependency. When we have so many things that are happening according to our own design and plan, it can often cause us to be captured by egocentricity. It can cause us to minimize depending because we won't be as desperate. So desperation can be channeled. See, it takes intensity to break through the modes of material nature. You can't just do it nonchalantly. You can't just do it, mechanically. And so without that intensity, then one will be stuck by the shackles of material energy. So we, unfortunately or fortunately, become more intense when we're dealing with challenges, misfortunes, traumas, and abrupt things in our lives. But yes, that intensity can sometimes cause us to get angry at God, to curse Him, and even to lose faith. And that's the crossroads that's there. The examination is designed to certify you, but the same examination can fail you. But at least you want that examination so that you can hopefully be able to move on. So the difficulties, we can say, is like an examination that's being immediately made available for one now to get certified as soon as possible. So you see that such difficulties is like examination.
So is that examination in the purpose of that examination? You say, okay, I'm going to go this way and I'm going to do whatever material things I can do because I want to be happy as long as I can be happy or whatever it is. Or that I'm going to take a spiritual road and let God do what God wants. And
that's up to each person.
So those, that mercy is that ability to be able to take that path.
Yes. She's saying so we can have something negative and something positive. What is it? The nivriti and poverty. There's always something negative we're trying to avoid and something positive we're trying to acquire. And we have this choice at any moment. And the mercy is that the positive choice of the choice that brings liberation and divine seva service is available. But the mercy is that in love, there must be freedom. And so the Lord doesn't force us unless we ask. And if He does, that's also special love and special mercy. Otherwise, we have the opportunity. That means we're all much more responsible for what happens to us and around us more than we're normally ready to accept. There's something about our mindset, mind culture, that allows or brings certain things to happen to any person. Okay? But let me just inquire, are the children ready? Okay.
Mark,
You want to hold it up?
it appears that our philosophical development and the direction that's always been there as the senior and more advanced devotees have always appealed to us. And one of the things that seems to, it's almost, actually it is confusing. We're always persuaded and told that association of higher Vaishnavas is what we should always pursue. But it almost seems like the exalted and the greater Vaishnavas cheat us. Just like we have to sing these prayers, Nalkam Das Thakur, it's written, the Acharya's leave. It appeared that everywhere he went, seeking out his higher association, someone had just left. So you say that there may be a calling of other associates from other places. But it appears that it's so painful for those of us who have to stay here and watch those who we've been persuaded to pursue leave, that just as we get an opportunity to become a little close, they go away. So I remember in the Prabhupada's quarters, 77, Brahmananda Maharaj, he broke into Prabhupada's room and he started with just the most extreme emotion. He was screaming and crying and begged Prabhupada, Prabhupada, please don't leave. Don't leave. He said, what can we do? If you leave, he said, we are all useless. So, and Prabhupada, I remember he sat back, he closed his eyes, and he started having a conversation with Krishna. He said, yes. He opened his eyes and said, so, Krishna says, I can go or I can stay. He said, so, I will stay. And then he stayed for some time and he left. So you read this wonderful realization, and you very artfully described how there are these other circumstances in our greater spiritual world. But there are those of us who are so lost and so unfortunate and so needy, and in an age where there's so much confusion and so much misdirection. Every army requires a general, and every soul, we require those spiritual leaders who inspire us to go through the fire, to go through the tests, to understand the mercy. So I kind of have to reject a little bit personally. You're asking us not to pray for you to stay, because at this point it's very clear, and I'm going to expose you a little bit just because. During that time, in 1977, I remember you were in Europe, you were distributing books. And Srila Prabhupada personally, at that point, he was told that you were distributing books in a communist country. And Prabhupada, he looked up and Prabhupada started crying. Prabhupada said, he has taken so much difficulty on my behalf. How can I repay him? Prabhupada said that. And I was there and I heard him say that. So I'm thinking for all of us, I know, and I know of something else Prabhupada said about you. He said, you would see Krishna in this lifetime. So, anyway, I'm just going to ask you not to be so much in a hurry to associate with the other side. So the question is, will you... Prabhupada pointed out how important you are to those of us who need you. So, my question is, Maharaj, just stay around for a while. You promised me that you would kick me with the good leg. So.
I'll just very brief. I thank my God brother for his nice expressions of love. We read the Chaitanya Charitamrita and we look at religious history in general, our tradition, other traditions. There's always a coming and going that we can't avoid, but there's also, constant meeting. One of Tamal Krishna Maharaj's servants, secretaries, sent us a letter of a dream that he had some short time after Tamal Krishna Maharaj left. And Tamal was calling for me. So I sent a message to some of the GBCs. I said, so be careful, Tamal may be recruiting some of you. Maharaj is always a super leader, so he has to go ahead. And then, and I mentioned also that we do have to remind ourselves that the nature of Prabhupada's mission, the nature of our work, involves many universes. Tamal was saying in a lecture I heard the other day that he was praying to Krishna when Prabhupada was ill, and he told Krishna, hey, Krishna, you got so many pure devotees in the spiritual world, leave Prabhupada here, why do you need him? He said, you leave him with us, Tamal was saying something similar, is that he wasn't praying that whatever Krishna's will was, or that he wasn't praying that Prabhupada don't stay. He says, Krishna, let him stay, because you got so many other servants, let us have this one. But we see that Srila Prabhupada left, as we all going to have to leave. So it's uncertain, but we have to see. But of course my prayer is, in fact, that if I am called off to, another mission, or called home, if that is the arrangement, that I would still have serious active involvement on this level. So I can guarantee you that if somehow I do leave in the next year or shorter afterwards, is that where there's a strong connection, it'll become stronger. If we look, most of the backgrounds are Muslims or Christian backgrounds. We look how Jesus left, at 12 years old, he left the family and went out and made disciples and started his work. And at 33, he was crucified and he left. And we can take other acharyas and we can see great souls, we can see sometimes, certain parallels. Even now, especially in Catholicism, even more than others, since we have the female aspect, the Ladini Shakti, Radharani, Krishna, through the mercy of the Ladini Shakti, we're able to embrace the mercy of Krishna. And so as they're praying through the mercy of Mother Mary, we're able to connect with Lord Jesus. Now think how intense it was for Mary and others to have to let Jesus go and do what he had to do. It's very intense. We know how intense it was when we're thinking we're so young, why should Prabhupada leave? But because there are so many arenas, it's similar to in the early days when we started temple, somebody who had only been around for 1 or 2 years, and then sometimes we would transfer him to some other place, and the person was just getting established and the people were so connected, but there was a need now for expansion. And that's how this society started, is that we learn a little something, and then we're sent to France, we're sent to Germany, we're sent somewhere to do something, and then, or Japan, and then the person would move on to another place. A few places we have, like in Canada, and in Toronto, Bhakti Mark, he's been a president there for almost 22 years, but his case is rare. In most cases, there's a few years and someone shifts or falls down, or either fall up or you fall down, shifted. Sometimes you get kicked out by different things and you move on to another service. So we can say similar to your own case, how you were in Puerto Rico and you were doing so much service there, built the project in such a wonderful way. People gave their hearts to you, you gave your hearts to them. And many of those people now are like totally feeling lonely because you're not there to oversee them and to help. But at the same time, there's other fields of activity that's there. And you're still in touch with some of them, and you will be. But by circumstance and by karma and by your field of activities, there was a need for you to make a shift. So we've heard what you said, and we're not trying to negate it. We appreciate it. But as I've constantly prayed to be used, I am not my own agency. And so let us see what happens. Now we should keep in mind that so many people giving their love and giving their affection, it may, kind of, tip the balance here. Or, I'm a public relations, see phenomena, maybe more than that than a devotee. So maybe I'm doing all of this, and I'm going to be living to be 90 years old, and I'm just trying to find ways to get everybody to be more serious and more dedicated, trying to make myself more serious. And we'll learn how to do a few new steps with my new legs pretty soon. So don't be surprised. The Lord is a trickster and his servants are tricksters, so this may just turn out to be one of the biggest ISKCON hoax. They say, we thought that guy was leaving. So, well, you pray for me, so now you got to deal with me. So it is late, but I'm going to take one last question. Yes. Okay. Another guy, brother, please. Okay.
Since we're in this mood of, especially that period in 77,
the Sikhi Mahidi, he was one of the first devotees to work with me, my godbrother, in Africa. And I'm so happy that his son, Ananda Suna, who was acting as my secretary when he was here, he's brought forth some really nice children, and is helping out in the Lana Temple in such a wonderful way. That the many, many, many years he's been able to rejuvenate and be consistent in his offerings to Srila Prabhupada, and we're very enthused to see his level of dedication.
Martin, see, when I was a karmic, complete karmic, give me the microphone. Wait. Just so the devotees know, I'm still a karmi, but as a complete karmi, just walking in and off the streets, I'd gone the temple used to be the YMCA. Okay, Now, my father was in charge of that YMCA. When I was a kid, 4 years old, I used to swim in the swimming pool at that YMCA. Yeah. Well, then later on, after meeting Sika Mahidi, one day I woke up in that same swimming pool with a shaved head and Dodi. Sika Mahidi, he kept. I was told by another god brother, Ramakali, that I was a complete nonsense, and that I should just really dedicate myself. And if you want to chant Hare Krishna, to chant Hare Krishna properly, you need to do it in association of devotees. So he had Sika Mahidi drive me to my apartment. We got all of my clothes, everything that I owned, and they just took everything I had and moved me into the temple. I was asking Sika, I said, do I really have to leave all of these? He said, you gotta leave all this stuff right now. Just he pushed me in my car. It drove me right to the temple, and as a result of his mercy, I actually became a devotee and associate.
This is why you get the mic last. Actually, Mercy Kishore. I was just the driver of the vehicle. But anyway, somehow or another, coming off that Mayapur pastime, it's amazing how, when Krishna does something, it's not a very simple thing. We do something, and maybe has one effect, good or bad. Krishna does something, it has thousands of effects, it ripples all over. So just from Maharaj going to Russia during that period and distributing those books, of course, how Prabhu just told us how Prabhupada was so pleased, which is the goal. You have to remember, this is what you want. You want your guru to speak of you in that way. Then Krishna is pleased. So that's how we were trying to work. And the effect of that was many devotees. I remember in Chicago, everybody heard of it because everyone thought, yeah, we're doing so nice for Prabhupada. We're going in snow like this, distributing books. And then you hear Maharaj did that. I said, how are we going to top that? I can't top that. But it was so inspiring. So about that same time, I went to Mayapur in '77, and I had such a strong desire to see Prabhupada personally. In the room with him. And of course, being a very new devotees, too many devotees that were already like Bhakti Tirtha. So I said, how is this going to happen? I don't know how. And so when the bus got there, I ran up to the room. Of course, the sannyasis, no, you can't come in. Come back later, maybe for this to go see bus. I've heard that before. They would never let you in, Who's this seeking me? So I go around to the back door. And the door is wide open, so I just sit outside the door, and I'm looking at Prabhupada. And I'm totally content just to sit there and look at Prabhupada talking to guests. And by the mercy of Krishna, His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj is in the room. And because he had pleased Srila Prabhupada so greatly, he saw me and he just gave me some mercy. He said, come on in the room. And I was able to come in the room and stay in there for almost 2 hours with Prabhupada. And Brahmananda also, when I mentioned, I talked to him about this many years later. I said, I didn't, And he said, you sat in the room with him for 2 hours? Yeah. And he didn't throw you out? So he didn't like the voice just sitting around. And we were talking about it, and then ultimately because I think he was so endeared to Maharaj that just because he invited me in, I was able to stay. So he didn't want to, he brought him in. Well, I'm going to let Bhakti Tirtha throw me out.
So I'm going to stop you.
But anyway.
We're going to have our children because they may have a little trouble sitting since so long.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
So some of our children are so small, so we want to let them start, so then I'll take breakfast. It's a little late. But don't forget, we're going to have the initiations tomorrow morning for the morning program, the samskaras in the afternoon. This way some people can leave a little earlier tomorrow who have to especially drive back or get earlier flights. Yes, the time that was says samskara from 8 to 9. Now we're going to, it's okay? Okay, so Initiations will be the morning program, the Bhagavatam period. We'll do initiation so we can speed things up.
Hare Krishna. Okay, before we move on to the next part of the program, I just have two very important announcements. The first one is first of all, I'd like to say welcome to everyone that just arrived today. And next thing is, there's some space that everyone needs to come together and come forward, because we're having a bit of a problem in the back here. You're bumping into the camera people. There's a lot of Matajis with babies that need to get by back and forth. So if everyone just move up maybe 1 foot, and anyone on the far side of the walkway, just move 1 foot back, and that should hopefully accommodate it. And just for the rest of the day, just try to please be as mindful as possible. The next thing, big problem out in the parking lot area, HWK 228, white Nissan Sentra rental car, needs to be moved immediately. It's wreaking havoc, I was told. So it's very, very important. Maryland license plate. Yes, HWK 228, and I believe it's a white, Nissan Sentra rental. So go take care of that, please. Okay, the next part of our program, I'd like to introduce Mother Purana. There she is right there. And we're going to hear a nice little tune from the Gita Nagari children.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Hare Krishna, Maharaj. All the children of Gita Nagari would like to offer a bhajan to His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami. They're going to sing some Sara prayers, and then they're going to read the translation. And after them, we're going to introduce Mother Agni Hotra. The Cleveland children of the Cleveland Yatra also have an offering.
Nananira loka yakarana gunagunatam
Tasya kalyana gunarnavasya Pande Guru Shri Charnarvindam
Kaptasya kayana nanavasya Vande Guru Sri
Mahaprabhu Kirtanita Gita Svadrita Majan Manasara Sena
Mahaprabhu Kirtanita Gita Svadrita Majan Manasara Sena
Romantra Kampa Shatranga Bhaja Vande Guru Shri Charnarvindam
Romanta Kampa Sutaranga Bhajo Vande Guru Sri Charnarvindam
Shri Vigrahara Nityanana Shringaratan Vandirmardanado
Shri Vigrahara Nityanana Shringaratan Vandirmardanado
Yaktasya Bhaktam Stanyanjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charnarvindam
Yutasya Bhaktam Shanijunjatopi Vande Guru Sri Charnarvindam
Jato Virashi Bhagavad Prasara Sanana Tritan Hari Bhakta Sangha
Jato Virashi Bhagavad Prasara Sanana Tritan Hari Bhakta Sangha
Great Chitin Vachita Saraiva Vanegara Shri Tranarvina
Vadveva Triptim Vadikosadava Vanegara Shri Tranarvina
Shri Radhika Madhavayora Para Madhurya Leela Gunarupa Namna Shri Radhika Madhavayora Para Madhurya Leela Gunarupa Namna Pratikshana Svadana Lolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam
Patikshanasta Dhanalopasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam
Nikunjayuna Ratikeli Sedai Yaya Ibirikti Apishaniya
Nikunjayuna Ratikeli Sedai Yaya Ibirikti Apishaniya
Tajati Dasha Lativalabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam
Tatradi Daksha Nivarabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam
Saksadari Nasmasta Sashtir Uktasta Taba Videvasadi
Saksadari Nasamasta Sase Uchakyatava Yadevasadi
Kintu Prabhuya Priyavatasa Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Gloria Priyavatasa Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Yasya Prasada Bhagavad Prasada Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kadupi
Yasya Prasadam Bhagavad Prasado Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kadupi
Dayan Suvans Yasya Yasya Trisandam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam
Ayam Tuham Tasya Sati Sangam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam
Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Tirtha Swami Iti Namine
Shrimate
Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Sista Mane Shri Hora Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Iti Namine
Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine
Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, who appeared in the middle of the 17th century, is a great spiritual master in the Krishna conscious chain of gurus and disciples. He says, one who with great care and attention loudly recites this beautiful prayer to the spiritual master during the Brahma Muhurta obtains direct service to Krishna, the Lord of Vrindavan, at the time of his death.
The spiritual master is receiving benediction. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisances under the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments, the spiritual master is always gliding by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion with his mind sometimes. His hair stands on and he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual
The spiritual master is always offering Krishna four kinds of delicious food, and zealous as that which is licked, chewed, drank, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava, and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis, who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's kunjal loving affairs with the gods of Vrindavan. I offer my most humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
The spiritual master is to be honored and much as the sleeping Lord, because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hari Krishna.
By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisances under the lotus feet of my spiritual master.
Srila Prabhupada ki. Bhakti Tirtha Swami ki. I just have to say I'm very proud of these guys. Next, before the Cleveland Yatra comes out.
We're also very proud of you. Prana. What we know is it's a Gurukuli herself. She's brought up in the society. Her mother and father are devotees. And now she has used what she has learned, and she's been able to offer it back in taking care of other children. She has several children of her own, and at the same time she's still willing to be available, facilitate some of the children within the community. So we're proud that you have stayed and tolerated us all these years. You're still chanting Hare Krishna and still trying to share, and in fact, in spite of the fact that you have your own great work and things to do with your family, but you're an example of going beyond just your own comfort zone. Pranadaas ki.
Thank you, Gurudev, for tolerating me. Next we have another young devotee from Gita Nagari, Damayanti Dasi, would like to offer you a card.
She's our little angel here. I'll bring my wheelchair over and we'll both sit together. Mine is not as nice as yours. Thank you, brother.